It's David O'Look here, and welcome back to Myprotein's brand new podcast called The Scoop, where we do just that. We get you the scoop on the most nail-biting, intense, and controversial topics in fitness, with our expert guests providing the information to help you make your mind up on what to believe. Topics discussed in gyms, pubs, and just about anywhere around the world surrounding sports, nutrition, and training. This is where you're going to get the scoop. Today's topic is surely one for the times, and that is, can vegan athletes really compete with meat-eating athletes? To discuss this, we've got two guests. Emelye Dwyer, a Myprotein athlete and vegan CrossFitter, and Morsia, a Myprotein ambassador, bodybuilder, and meat eater. How's it going, peeps?
I'm really good, thank you.
I'm good, thanks, mate. Very good, yeah. I'm hot. I'm like bordering on too hot, but I'm okay. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, it is. It is baking. Absolutely baking. It's a hot day out here today. All right, we're going to kick this off. Obviously, this is a strong topic here, but to kick it off a little bit lightly, we're going to go through a little this or that questions, a few this or that questions, so our listeners and watchers can get to know you lot, a little bit more. So I'm going to kickstart with you, Emelye. Don't worry, it's not too many questions. It's about 5 of them.
Okay. Let's
go. Cats or dogs?
Oh, that's a really hard one. Cats.
High reps or heavy weights?
High reps.
Protein pancakes or overnight oats?
Oh, protein pancakes.
Spinach or kale?
Kale.
3 legs or 3 arms?
3 arms.
Yes. Bicep heavy, I see you. All right, Matt. I see you. Matt, let's go.
Okay,
dancing or singing?
Jeez, like neither, but if I had to, I guess probably singing.
Singing, yeah. Indoor or outdoor training?
Indoor.
Deadlifts or squats?
Probably currently deadlifts, but fairly even.
Chicken or beef?
I'm going to say chicken, but again, fairly even. These are difficult. You're deliberately picking ones that are well similar.
Never shower again or never wear clothes?
Never. You're absolutely killing me here. I'm going to say never wear clothes, but I could just fashion clothes out of things, right? Technically, if I was to wrap myself in a curtain, that's not clothes, but everyone's a winner.
I see what you're trying to do here.
I've beaten you at your own game.
That's not in the rules.
You didn't explain that, so it's done. Deal, it's locked in. It's done. I'm doing it.
It's a certified stalker situation, guys. But we see.
That's fine. Absolutely fine.
Oh my days. Yeah, Em, you was very straightforward with yours. Matt, you was finding those
I'm sorry.
Life or death.
I feel like that was just, they were tough, some of those. They were very they were fine margins there.
Absolutely. I'm a people pleaser, so you said quick fire, and I thought, gotta obey this.
Sorry.
I've got to please man.
I'm not very good at quick fire stuff. I need to analyse things in more depth. I can't handle it.
I see you. Is that the same with your training? Are you a slow rep?
I'm an absolute Rain Man. Like, I love tracking things and obsessively measuring every single element of everything. I'm like an absolute dork in that sense.
Same.
How about yourself, Em?
Oh yeah, I really love data. I think that's one of the brilliant things about the quasi sport, and I guess it is a sport that I participate in, as it's so binary. You're either the fittest, fastest, or strongest, or you're not. So there's lots of things you can track on there. I really enjoy that. I get a lot out of data.
CrossFit's awesome for that, right? Because there's just such a plethora of events. Do you know what I mean? There's literally an endless list of events / lifts or whatever to do. You can just be hitting PRs constantly. That's what there was a time in the not that far back. No, but do you know what I mean? In the sense that, particularly if you were new to it, there's if you're a powerlifter, right, you've got 3 main lifts. That's it, right? As a CrossFitter, if something's going badder, you've got so many other things to explore
variants.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I think that's awesome because it's it just makes it so fun. You've got so many. In theory, I know obviously there's lots of horrible stuff, but it makes it fun in the sense that you can just keep doing you keep getting better at. There's more things to get better at, I guess, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the class atmosphere is you get a lot of adherence. People see themselves improving on different things, so they keep coming back for more. Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Just wheeling us onto our main topic of today, right? Which is, can vegan athletes really compete with meat-eating athletes? You're a vegan athlete. I'm going to start with you. I'm going to ask, where did your journey start with veganism? Was it from a young age, or talk to us about that.
So I have always grown up around animals and in a very animal-focused family. So lots of dogs from a young age, and I've always had a real affinity with non-human species in that sense. A lot of people agree that they probably prefer to spend the evening with their dog than a couple of people who they know. That's quite a common thing you see nowadays. I think as soon as I made the connection between the animals that I was in and around my life and the lifeless, completely non-animal looking thing on my plate or in my cereal, once I'd made the connection with them, initially the veganism side of things was much later in my life, but the vegetarian side of things I was in and out of all throughout my childhood as I kind of played around with it, and it's quite a big thing within my family as well. I turned my mum vegan, which is cool, and my sister, and my boyfriend. Not because I get nectar points for turning people vegan. It's not because of that. It's purely just because I feel so strongly about the industry and the care of animals that you can't help but talk passionately about it. And I think when you do talk passionately about it, people, and they feel your emotion, people go, oh, hang on a minute, they've got a point here. But no, veganism came to me a little bit later on. Initially about 10 years ago is when I first turned vegan. I then had a load of dietary issues that have been a result of malnutrition when I was younger, because I know it's quite, I talk about it very openly that I struggled with an eating disorder for near on 20 years. Yeah. And this has caused me a lot of digestion issues, which actually turning vegan has helped with, because I used to react to all sorts of animal products and have a severe allergy to milk, actually. But I kind of came out of veganism very, very momentarily while we tried to address what my allergies were, and I had to eat fish and chicken for a while, which I really struggled with mentally. And I think when you're putting something in your mouth that you morally don't agree with, and it upsets you, that's going to cause more digestive issues from there on as well, in terms of cortisol and not being able to absorb things properly. So I've now been back being vegan. I realise I'm digressing, but I think it's good for people to know that it's not always linear, and we're not perfect, and you can go away from things and come back to them. And I don't sit here and protest that I am 100% the perfect vegan. I accidentally killed a wasp this morning, and I'm already, upset about it. Still upset about it.
Unbelievable.
That is. I'm leaving. I'm out.
She's a fraud. But no, I've been back being vegan now for about 3.5 years, but veggie kind of before that. And yeah, mindset-wise, I feel so much more at home with my feelings and who I am as a person. I feel like I'm not pretending in myself anymore, so.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a lot of things there that you mentioned there that we're going to be sure to touch on. I just want to bring in Matt on this. Matt, how's your journey been like with food? Did you always grow up in a meat-eating household? Have you just been about the meat life, or how's about
the meat life? I'm all about the meat life. So, to be honest, I guess I don't fall into the stereotypical like guy that goes to the gym that like eats loads of chicken and like loves meat. Like I'm not really in that category at all. Like I don't really. To be honest, I would say my primary motivation for eating meat now is like, it's bad, but convenience, to be honest. Like I don't love eating meat. I could easily be vegetarian. I'm not fussed. I don't ever think, I really feel like eating some meat now. I don't ever crave it. It's just a convenience thing, to be honest. I think that's always been, like I also have a very, very fast metabolism. I always have, my siblings share that. So I've always been like, I've always eaten loads of food. Like I'm not, again, in terms of diet, like I don't conform to probably, again, the like fitness industry stereotype of being like really methodical with my diet. And I'll gladly eat like crap, I'll eat like McDonald's and pizza like from time to time.
That's my kind of guy.
Yeah. And I've like, basically I'd say my diet is probably, well, it is definitely less than optimal. I think I'm mindful of like, macronutrients and calories as a whole, but I definitely have a more laid back approach than I'd say most people. Yeah, I mean, I've always eaten loads of food. I've always enjoyed food. Like, I probably enjoy food too much. Like, I've competed. So I used to be a long and triple jumper. I did that for like 10 years. So as a triple jumper, like, your weight is crucial. You know, ultimately it's all about your power to weight ratio. So you basically want to be as light as you possibly can whilst maintaining performance. So I spent like years trying to be as light as I could and not really knowing how to do that. So just, you know, manipulating my diet in a really bad way, just literally cutting calories. And then I became a powerlifter, and I had the opposite. I was trying to fill out my weight category. I was trying to gain weight, and with my metabolism, it's really hard to do that. So I was essentially force feeding myself for like months and months on end. So I've had, like, I guess a weird approach to food and diet, but the overriding theme has just been that, like, I love food. I love donuts and stuff, you know. So, like, yeah, that's a big part of my life in the sense that I just enjoy.
Yes.
I enjoy eating food. You know, that is a large part of my life, is like looking forward to eating good food, basically.
Honestly, that is me in a nutshell. And to be honest with you, a lot of our listeners will have that same relationship with food to that extent. Like me, food is like life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad, isn't it? Yeah.
I know, but it's like
Yeah.
you know. I was talking about this. I was having a conversation about this before when I was like, for me, I train in essence to some degree because I like to eat. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly.
I do
Yeah.
enjoy training to a certain degree, but it's like I also super like eating. So I know that I'd probably be a hot mess if I didn't actually train. So
but like but it makes sense, right? Because it's like you can have an hour of doing something hard a day, and then have another like 15 hours of enjoying your life, or you could have, like, you know, spend all your time restricting your calories horribly and just not enjoy. Like, that's what I tell people all the time. You know, it's like short-term loss for long-term gain or whatever. You know, just doing something horrible for a little bit each day, and then in return you can just have a way better life.
Exactly.
You know?
On a physiological level, of course, though, kind of looking as obviously I'm a performance athlete at the moment, you know, and obviously, you know, Matt, you have been in the past, but predominantly now mostly aesthetics. Am I correct in that?
Literally, I literally train. Oh, do you know what? So I stopped powerlifting a few years ago competitively. I then had a couple of years. I am primarily a YouTuber, so my primary goal is just to make good content, right? The last few months, I've definitely shifted my focus to trying to get strong again. So my training is still now centered around performance. I'm trying to be strong. Like, I don't enjoy bodybuilding. Training for me is just like boring. I'd rather set fire to my face, you know. So like, I enjoy training for strength and trying to get strong. That was extreme. I'll take it back. I wouldn't rather do that. But yeah, my primary motivation for training now is to get stronger because it's more fun, you know. But I don't compete. But yeah, I know. I'm assuming if you're going to say about like performance based, absolutely, yeah. Having a terrible diet, although you could conform in a macronutrient calorie sense, it's definitely going to have an impact on performance for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to say, because you know, you can't out-train a bad diet. And I think that's where it comes down to in terms of when people try to say, you know, a vegan diet versus an omnivorous diet or a meat-eating diet.
Yeah.
You know, both have their pros and cons. You can have a terrible diet eating both ways,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
and it's all about awareness.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Like, a lot of people off the bat think that eating having a vegan diet equals healthy from that perspective, and that's not always the case, is it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, of course, there is the immediate benefit that you're having far fewer, you know, things like animal fats and those real saturated fats in your diet, purely just by eliminating animal products and not having them there. You're also shielding yourself from the potential taking in of hormone contaminated meats and milks and things like that. So you're saving yourself from that. But of course, a lot of people go vegan and actually they really enjoy eating meat and those sorts of things. I'm not one of those people that these new mad fandangled steaks you can get that have got beetroot in them that bleed. Yeah. I mean, my partner, he used to quite like certain meat elements. He loves these steak thingies. But I see them and my tummy goes funny. But for a lot of people, you know, if they enjoyed meat but they've given it up for ethical or environmental reasons, having these alternatives which are so meaty and meat-like, you know, unfortunately, a lot of those, they are processed, you know. So, you know, there are lots of non-processed, healthy, vegan alternatives that give you so much bang for your buck in terms of protein and other nutrients and micros. But that's the problem. And of course, a lot of these big mainstream, and I'm not going to do junk food, but they are junk food companies, you know, chicken restaurants, burger restaurants, those sorts of things. They've all jumped on this vegan bandwagon because it's a huge market that they can tap into and provide for, which is fantastic. But also it is, you know, it is junk food. It's still junk food. Just because it's not cruel junk food doesn't, you know, negate the fact it's probably going to be pretty bad for your insides.
For you, did you... You know, someone might say to you, "Well, you built your muscle before you went vegan." Like, have you ever had that as a, or whilst you was on that journey? Can somebody be vegan and develop their muscles to where you're at?
Definitely. I mean, I've been training now for 5 years and been vegan for 3 of those, veggie for 5. Mm-hmm. And the majority of my muscle growth has been in the latter part of that journey. Getting enough protein as a vegan is genuinely really easy. There's a few little gaps that people have to plug and fill, but unfortunately, with modern farming industries, a lot of those gaps have to be plugged for non-vegans as well. So we're all kind of in the same boat in that area. So I'll happily come on to the intricacies of things like B12 and collagen and omegas and stuff later on, because those are real big rabbit holes we could go down and be here for hours on. But in terms of getting general protein, yeah, I mean, most meat products, you're looking at between, I think it's something like 20 to 25 grams of protein kind of in a meat product, depending on the volume of what you eat. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to plant proteins and servings, you're looking at between 15 to 25 grams. So it's not actually that far off in that sense. The biggest issue comes to people having too much of one form of protein and not enough of another, and not matching them up to then give themselves a full spectrum of amino acids. And of course, if you don't have the full spectrum of amino acids, then your body goes, oh, these proteins, they're great, but I'm missing this middle one, so I can't do anything with it. Yeah. So I think of it as being like amino acids are kind of like a rainbow. And stop me if I'm going too scientific on this and everyone's just kind of falling asleep at their desks or they're listening. I kind of see amino acids a bit of a rainbow. Yeah. So people say plants have protein. You look at gorillas, they're the size of them, and it's like, that's great, but we've evolved past that. But they are our closest relative, and of course they are completely herbivore.
Yeah.
The difference is with amino acids, if you see them as a rainbow spectrum, certain plants will have, say, red, orange, yellow, and green, and the other plants might have blue, indigo, and violet. Mm-hmm. So only by matching certain foods together are you going to get that full rainbow, and then your body can go, fantastic, I can work with this. But we've been instinctively doing this for years, like rice and peas. And rice and pea protein is actually one of the My Vegan blends, the complete protein that they do with the carbs as well. So, that makes a full amino acid profile. Things like peanut butter and wholemeal toast. We've got a full spectrum in there.
All right.
So you can do it, and you don't have to just have a plant protein that's got the full amino acid profile. And they are out there. Chia seed, quinoa, and soy all have a full spectrum.
Okay.
So, yeah. Geeky, I know. Yeah, sorry.
A nice little educational run through there. Now, there was a lot that I picked up from that side. But Matt, you are, in essence, on this, the advocate for meat. All right. So the question is on your side is, why do you? If you mentioned a little while earlier that it's pure laziness, but then, isn't there an argument for the fact that meat is good for your diet when you want to build strength or when you want to perform?
Okay, so I mean, this kind of ruins the debate, but I wouldn't say I'm an advocate for meat, right? The first thing I would say straight away is that I'm fairly confident that if I were to become vegan, it would prolong my life expectancy, right? I'm pretty sure that that's a fact, right? And I think as a general view, I think if you were looking at overall health, it would also probably improve like a number of my health markers, right? What I was saying earlier in terms of convenience, that's probably my biggest driving force. And I know, like, ethically speaking, that's horrible. If you really analyze it, right? If you're, as a meat eater, you're essentially admitting you're not a very nice person because you're choosing to you're essentially encouraging, what happens, the backstory of how you get meat and animal products, right? The only thing I would counter that with is that you could, and I know two wrongs don't make a right, of course, right? But you could say that about everything. Unless you're going to devote your entire life to just doing amazing things. So, for example, rather than doing a regular office job that doesn't really help anyone, go to, a third world country and devote your life to helping people, or building schools, or planting food, whatever it is. That you could always do more, right? So although I'm saying, I would never say you should definitely eat meat. In fact, the opposite. I'd say if you don't, you could argue no one needs to, but I'm saying that for me it would make my life significantly more difficult to not eat meat or animal products. If you're in that boat, then it's obviously your choice, but generally speaking, if you can, I would say go vegan, because like I said, ultimately it's going to make you a healthier person, and it's almost certainly going to prolong your life expectancy. So it's not a misconception, but definitely in terms of the amino acid profile, that's a big thing, because everyone says, you can get all the protein you need as a vegan, and you obviously can. Emelye already touched on the fact that you need to make sure you're getting various sources, whereas with meat, you can just eat meat, whatever, you can eat animal products and you're pretty much covered. As a vegan, you've got to be more careful and more meticulous in terms of choosing different stuff to get that whole spectrum. But like I said, so as a result of that, I'm sure you could get used to it, and I'm sure it will become easier over time as you learn what you needed to consume. But for me, at the moment in my life, I don't have I will frequently not eat enough food because I physically haven't got time to pick up food in my hand and put it in my mouth because I'm doing stuff. So anything that's going to make that process easier and more convenient, and specifically to me or someone that goes to the gym, I'm a fairly big guy. My protein requirements are significantly higher than the average human. So if eating animal products is going to make that process easier, which it does in my opinion, then that's what I'm doing. Now I know, again, ethically, I disagree that I think it's not a nice thing to do. That's a different argument, I guess. But in terms of performance, there's absolutely no reason why you don't need to eat meat. If you can devote time to like I said, to figuring out what you need to eat as a vegan, then that's not going to have any negative impacts on performance whatsoever. It's like an old school thing, isn't it? Train really hard, eat loads of chicken, that's the stereotypical kind of bodybuilder approach. Yeah. Eating chicken's not magic. It's not got some crazy components that are going to make you bigger. What you're getting from that is the macronutrients and essentially the protein, and then
the only thing I don't want to do from this perspective, because you're not strongly on the other side. What I don't want to do on this perspective is also disregard the benefits of eating meat, though. So is there no benefits of eating chicken, for example? Because in essence
I know, for example, right?
Because some of our listeners are going to be sitting here thinking, "Wait, hold on, what's going on over here? Is this
pro vegan?" Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I eat meat. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's hold on, wait a minute. So everybody's gonna. So I just want to bring a bit of balance to it from that.
Yeah. So I eat meat, right? I eat meat. I deliberately, if no one's making me do it, I'm choosing to do that, right? So my two, like I said, main sources of motivation are convenience. In my opinion, it's easier to build muscle as a meat eater. It's easier. You can still do it as a vegan to the same extent, but it's easier as a meat eater because the sources, in my opinion, are easier to access. That's the one reason I do it. And then the second reason is that, I guess, again, going back to how much I love food, I don't love meat. I'm I really feel like eating some meat. I don't crave meat, but I do.
Matt, it sounds to me like you like meat. It sounds to me like you like it.
Okay, I do like it a bit. Yeah, I do enjoy. I ate chicken nuggets the other day. I enjoy eating forms of meat that, it's funny, like Emelye was saying, you can now get replacements, right? You can literally get something that is exactly the same in pretty much in taste and appearance as a beef burger or a chicken nugget, for example, as a vegan. But they're hard to come by. They're not readily available, and they're equally, processed and stuff. So yeah, my two biggest motivations for eating meat are the convenience, and then I guess the enjoyment, the impact on my life.
I was going to say this. I'm going to ask you this question as well because, I've got a lot of friends who are vegan as well. A lot of one thing about they will all say is once people become vegan, they also in essence become vegan apologists in that sense. Because you touched earlier on about how you're out here converting family, friends, boyfriends, everybody. What is it what is it about reaching this epiphany, in essence, yeah, with veganism that allowed that immediately the relief comes in the Instagram bio, like vegan is like past, you know what I mean? It's like it's real. You know what I'm saying? It's active. So
Yeah.
what is it about coming to that place that it's like, all right, I need everybody on board from that perspective. But even Matt sitting there, Matt's afraid to say he likes meat in your presence. It's like Matt don't want to say he likes meat.
It's not even. I'm not, like, okay, I do like meat, but I don't like. I have some friends that literally love steak, for example. They're like, oh, I can't wait to eat steak. I've never experienced that. I don't love meat. I prefer donuts. There is a whole array of food that I prefer to meat. I like it. I don't dislike it. I like it, but I'm not a meat fan. I'm not out there like frigging with a billboard like encouraging people to eat meat.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question, David. Really good. I think it must come down to really the feeling that when you lose that guilt, that you're not contributing anymore deliberately. And one of my mottos is do no harm. You're not deliberately, knowingly contributing to the suffering of animals and contributing to the decimation of the planet. For your own convenience or taste buds, essentially, or your own well-being. I mean, for me, there's a hierarchy as to why I am vegan. First of all, it's for the animals. And unapologetically, I always say that. Secondly, it's for the environment, but there's a very small gap between. And then right down here, it's about me and my nutrition. But I have always kind of had that hierarchy. As I don't see me being human as something of an ego. I don't know if you've seen that lovely diagram that's kind of like a triangle with ego, and then it's a circle with eco. Yeah. And in the ego, it's the human at the top, and then all the animals and everything, plants underneath. And with eco, it's the human, and it's inbuilt into a circle all around it. I'll try and make sure there's a link to this or something. We can put it in the show notes. Perhaps people might like to see that visual because it's quite powerful. And I think it comes from, because I was saying to you guys earlier, but when we were getting ready for the show, that this is such an emotive subject for me. And I think that's the way it comes down to, vegan, if you're vegan, you don't get nectar points, or, other supermarket points are available, or you don't get tokens, like you don't get goodness and brownie point tokens, the free entry to heaven or whatever your greater being is you believe in, for converting people to veganism. I'm not going to get a guaranteed place in the sky. It is purely because I think we feel so passionately about the reasons behind it. And when you are that passionate about something and you speak about it with such, I guess you try and educate yourself so you can speak about it with a little bit of intellect. Or for some people, when it is an emotional subject, they can get a bit flustered. And that's when I think people have developed the opinion that all vegans are preachy and this kind of thing. Don't preach at me. And you're going to feel preached at if somebody's speaking to you about something regarding ethics that you haven't quite bought into yet, because it makes you feel like you're being judged, and vegans, they think they're better than everybody else. And in the sense of when it comes down to an ethical level, the whole do no harm, not contributing to the decimation of the planet and killing of animals, essentially we are doing better in that ethical front. And obviously, as a nod to what to Matt was saying there, because he was absolutely right, you can't save the world. You can't go and solve all of these huge problems that are out there. And, sometimes I look at it and I go, what in the world are we going to do? That Coldplay lyric, look at what everybody's going through. But there are certain things that as an individual you can do. And, I think when it can start with something so small as choosing milk made from oats as opposed to the udders of a cow whose child has been ripped away from it and pretty much discarded as garbage, then that's a small move for us to make as human beings. But actually, butterfly effect, we can all do our bit to make the planet a little bit of a better place to be in. And I think that's where I try and sing from. And I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because it's such a great opportunity for us to hear each other's voice and learn of each other's opinions and grow as human beings in that respect as well. And that's the other thing we need to do, like have more conversations like this where they're not arguments and fights and vegans versus meat eaters, but a conversation that is steeped in science and research. And so I digressed quite a lot there, I think, but I don't have a note to cut.
I think just quickly on the thing, the preachy thing, is that is definitely that is a that is the thing that people will always say, right? Is that the vegans are kind of like, you know, they rather like, this is not my opinion, but people will say vegans aren't happy being a vegan. They want everyone else to be a vegan as well. They're constantly kind of on a mission to get everyone else to become vegan, right? Now, in my experience, like, I know a number of vegans, and I think, I mean, I wouldn't say it's an overriding that's the case, but I do think a lot of them are, I guess you could say, quite preachy. But to be honest, when you analyse the reasoning behind that, i.e., like, not to like inhumanely kill animals, and I guess it's justified. You know, like, if I preach to you about not committing murder, that isn't annoying. It's like, probably should do that because it's bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, so it's
exactly.
like, even though I guess, again, going back to me eating meat because it's a convenient thing. If someone says stop eating meat, stop meat, I'll find that annoying because I'm doing it out of convenience. But actually, if I analyse the undertone, the reasoning, then it is justified. But yeah, I guess it is. It's not nice being told you shouldn't. Yeah, if you're doing something because it makes your life in the short term better,
it's uncomfortable.
And someone says what you're doing is bad. That's annoying, isn't it? Because you're like, oh, damn it, I want to carry on doing this. You know.
Nobody likes having their actions kind of highlighted to them. It's an uncomfortable place to be in, and I think people are really living in this state of cognitive dissonance where we don't want to associate this lifeless, pale or red, looking thing on our plate that doesn't look a single thing like the animal that it's actually come from, and we certainly don't want to think about the process to which it came to be there, or the process of its life before it came to be there, because it is really nasty, and it's industrial farming really is destroying the planet. I mean, there's I think it's something insane, like 90% of the soy grown in the Amazon rainforest is for agricultural feed, not for tofu or tempeh or Alpro. It's for the agricultural feed. So, I mean, that in its sense already, just feeding animals soy and not letting them graze on things that they are supposed to eat, is first of all terrible for them, and then as a backlash, terrible for us. But also for the planet, that's really bad. And you think about, the worldwide hunger issues that we have. Instead of using that to feed agriculture, and of course these animals, they will then die. They won't be bred, and people say, oh yeah, but those animals won't exist then. It's like, yeah, but do you want an existence just to be killed for eating? Or is it actually better for the animals to just breed as and when, as they naturally would have done before humans completely took over the world? And, use some of that soy to feed the hungry, feed people in the world. And I get that there's a lot of logistical issues that come into that. However, it could be a start. And considering we only really get 36% of our calories on average from meat sources, it seems to make sense that there's something going askew here with the volume of meat that people eat.
Yeah, I think some people, it's funny because it's not always, I don't think it's always, there is a great deal of ignorance surrounding like what happens in agricultural farming and stuff like that as well. But with a lot of like the TV and documentaries that are out now, I think some people just are at a place where they've just accepted it as, I like meat, so that's the chalice that I'm going to take, and I will fight some other fight, be it I'll fight the fight of, I don't know, of world hunger, or I'll fight the fight of something else to counteract.
Are they though?
The counteract the. Do you know what I'm saying? Or some people are just like, or some people don't consider it ethically wrong from that perspective.
I feel like anyone that doesn't consider it ethically wrong doesn't really understand it. Do you know what I mean? There's no way, unless you're an absolute sadist, there's no way you can like actually understand what's happening and not think that's a bad thing. You have to be like a psychopath for that to be the case, I think.
Yeah, it's
the only reason why I wouldn't 100% say because I just know that there's some listeners that we have that may not be of that same disposition. You see what I'm saying? And there are scientists on the other side, obviously with the regards to the treatment of animals. That's a strong issue from that perspective. But there are scientists on the other side that would speak about the benefits of indeed eating animals. But just quickly on that, there is a study. I think there was a study recently, right, that looked at, it analysed different vegan proteins versus whey protein, where the actual protein content
was even. I think in some cases the vegan protein content was higher. Leucine levels were also equal, like the amino acid levels were equal, and the study consisted of people taking, so it wasn't like two control groups, it was like people took the vegan protein. There was 3 different types. I think it was like a pea one, maybe a pumpkin one, then like a mix that had been hydrolyzed, whatever. 3 different types, and then there was a whey protein. And the people in the study would take the whey protein, then at a later date they do the vegan protein. They basically try all the 4 types, right? The vegan ones versus the non-vegan one. And they found that the amino acid levels in their blood were higher, I think significantly, 20 or 30% higher when they took the whey protein, so the non-vegan protein source. And that was even when the vegan protein they were consuming, their protein levels were actually higher than they were in the whey protein. So you're essentially, what the study showed in that example were that people were consuming vegan protein and more of it compared to the whey protein, and yet the guys taking the whey protein had increased levels of amino acids in their blood, which is essentially is better for building muscle, right? So in that instance, on a physiological level, the non-vegan protein was more effective in terms of building muscle.
I think it might be just, Matt, are you happy to just explain to people the importance of leucine when it comes to muscle building, just in case there's any of the listeners who don't quite...
You're probably better at explaining the benefits of leucine. Basically, leucine is one of the amino acids, and it's good. You need it to build muscle, right? But you're probably going to be able to hit them with more stats than I am.
Emma's like, I'm going to...
I'm done. That's it.
Em said, I'm going to explain it, but I'm going to ask Matt first, and then I'm going to do it. Go ahead, hit them with it.
Sounds like your B12 levels are low, Matt. If you're tired. So leucine is the amino acid that will signal muscle protein synthesis. So that's why when you get your essential amino acids, and essential when it comes to the body, so like essential vitamins, essential minerals, it basically means the body can't survive without it, but it also, I believe it means it can't make them itself. So something like taurine, for example, isn't essential. It's essential for cats. They have to get it from an outside source, but we make it in our bodies, I believe. Feel free to fact check me on that. I'm pretty sure this is right according to my research. But leucine, you normally get 2 parts leucine in your to the ones valine and isoleucine, I think it is, in BCAAs, because leucine is so important in that. So I think ensuring that your levels of that are high enough, you can normally synthesize the right amount of protein out of whatever you're taking. And the thing is, I mean, Matt touched on this again earlier. He's trying to build muscle. He trains, really hard and intensively. I train really hard and intensively. The average human being, even if you're only having, say, 1 gym session a day for 5 days of the week, the average human being is probably having far too much protein than they need anyway. There seems to be like a real obsession, and I'd say for a training athlete, I don't know if I say athlete, a training person, Matt, would you agree with me that normally like 1.6 to maximum 2 grams of protein per lean body mass is adequate?
Yeah, that's more than enough. Like you said, for the average person.
Yeah.
But then more than enough in terms of optimal for building muscle. I would say for the average person, I mean, a lot of people are looking to lose weight now, right? I think if you're in a calorie deficit, keeping your protein high, like above average high, is really, really important, and it can have a drastic impact on the success of your diet. So I do think for a lot of people, it's like a two-way thing. So on the one hand, yes, protein is overhyped. You don't need that much protein to build muscle, but at the same time, it is really, really important. Particularly if you're if you're restricting your calories, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to lose fat, it is a fact that if you're trying to lose fat and you keep your protein high, so you've got 2 people, right? 2 people that are on identical. They're both trying to lose fat. They're both consuming the same number of calories. If person A eats, a significant more protein than a significant more amount higher. Well, I can't speak words. A significant amount more protein than person B, they are going to retain more muscle mass. They're going to retain more lean mass, and they're probably going to find it easier because of the satiety. When you eat a high protein diet, you're generally going to eat more fiber as well. So it's going to make you feel full. It's going to give you the illusion of having eaten more food. So it's going to make it easier to diet, and like I said, you're going to retain more muscle, which A is good because everyone likes having muscle generally, and B is good because the more muscle you have, the more calories your body's going to burn retaining that muscle. It has to work to keep the muscle, right? So you're going to burn more calories just in the act of doing anything because you have more lean mass.
Yeah. I think people often take their protein consumption as well off their total body weight, not just their lean body weight.
True.
So and there can be a big difference in that, of course, as we know.
All right, let's bring this back around to performance from that perspective. Some people would simply ask the simple question: can a vegan athlete compare, or can they compete with a meat-eating athlete on that same level?
Yes.
From that regard.
100%. I'd say 100% yes, but it's going to be harder. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I definitely think, and again, I think that just comes down to how we're brought up as well. If we're brought up in a predominantly animal-consuming environment and family, then that's what we're going to be used to, Whereas if you're brought up in a vegan family, then instinctively, you know where it is. And of course, in society, everything is so fueled by the meat industry and the money made behind that. These huge conglomerate companies, and also things like Pepsi and Coke, and they're not animal companies, but it comes down to money and advertising and awareness. So I do think they can compete completely. You do need to be on top of it a little bit more, but purely because of that, because it's not so readily thrown in your face, I think.
Okay.
I think also, I want to chuck one more thing into because I like, So in terms of the convenience thing, I think what I'd say also is, I think as a vegan, so for example, a vegan strongman who's going to need an absolutely enormous amount of protein, right, compared to the average person, the amount of fiber they're going to have to consume as a result of eating that protein, that's not ideal. You're devoting a lot of time to being on the toilet, and it's not a great, for social events, it's not ideal. So that's another thing that can be overlooked. If you look at it in terms of, I can get enough protein, you definitely can, but there's two things. Like I said, firstly, Emelye touched on the amino acid profile. So you essentially, protein, not all protein is the same, right? You could get 20 grams of protein in thingy option A and then option B, but your body won't do the same with it, because if it hasn't got a complete amino acid profile, you can't use it properly, right? That's one thing. So that you have to bear that in mind. But also, like I said, the fiber, generally, not always, but generally, vegan sources of protein tend to be high in fiber, so beans and nuts and stuff. And if you eat a lot of fiber, there are repercussions, So whereas as a meat eater, like I said, I can just drink some whey protein or eat a chicken breast, and it's going to have no impact on my bowels and whatever. I'm not going to feel bloated and horrible. As eating the vegan source, I mean, I've tried it. I've done short periods. I'm talking days where I've got protein from vegan sources, and I've definitely found it has hit me hard in terms of I'm literally in the bathroom for a lot of the day, because of the fiber. Now, it may be that I would adapt to that and it would no longer be an issue after a while, but definitely in the short term for me, that was not ideal.
I think it's interesting that you said there, though, about being a meat-eating diet, but the first thing you referred to, of course, was having a protein shake. So I thought that was quite interesting. And obviously, if you're having a shake a day, I don't know how many shakes you have in a day.
17.
Or
no, I have two. I have one in the morning and one in the evening.
Well, Myprotein do 70 different flavors of impact whey protein, and you
use
can
the
find
code
them
MAT,
here. Follow my
MATT. Oh my god.
Well, that's the thing. I think most performance athletes or people who are trying to build will supplement with some form of a shake as well, regardless of whether they are a meat eater or a vegan.
Yeah.
So I think that that comes down to it as well. And if you are vegan for and you're not training, you're not going to need as much. But also, if you have a fermented version of a protein as well, that's going to be far more easily and readily absorbed by your body, because obviously a fermentation process is like a mini cooking process. So if you're vegan and you're having, say, a serving of tempeh or tofu every single day, you are going to be well up there with your protein availability. And if you've never had tempeh, drop me a message or have a look at my stories, because I tell you, I will show you how to cook it, and it is delicious.
It's worth trying. Seitan. I had the other day. I had some I had a seitan, essentially a fake chicken burger. It was absolutely outrageous, to the point where I literally went into the kitchen of the place because I didn't believe it. I was like, "There's no way that's not chicken." It was nuts. It was actually nuts. And I think I don't know what the amino acid profile was like of that. It's I think it's like wheat. Is it like wheat something like wheat? I think seitan is from wheat flour or something, right? But
yeah, seitan is made from wheat gluten.
But the protein content, again, I don't know what the amino acid profile is like, but the
yeah.
protein content is ridiculously high. Something obscene, like 70 grams per 100 grams. Like, it was ridiculous, and it was like unbelievably good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I don't know what the amino acid profile of that is. I don't know how transferable that protein content is.
I believe seitan is. No, it's not. It's not a complete. You'd have to have it with something else, so it would come under the grain. The grain spectrum. Yeah, I could have a look into that. But seitan is. I actually, talking about convenience. I've actually got several allergies, so I'm allergic to cashew nuts, pistachio nuts, milk, which is obviously no issue. Oranges, I'm allergic to.
No way.
Wow. I know,
Hang on, like just oranges or like. Are we talking like satsumas, tangerines?
Satsumas, tangerines, clementines.
Well,
That's
since wow.
Wow, yeah, you had that prepared. You've got a list on the screen just now.
Since being told I'm allergic to oranges, I've stayed away from the orange relatives.
Clementines?
Stayed away from the whole family. So
Mandarins? Mandarin.
I seem to be okay on grapefruit. I'm okay on grapefruit and other citruses. But I'm also allergic to gluten, wheat, and also yeast. And so when it comes to vegan alternatives, there's very few things that I can actually have. I'm very limited.
That's tricky.
What would it take for you to go vegan?
What would it take? That's like a. What are we talking here? Are we talking like money? Do you know what I mean? What are we?
No.
I mean, I'm open to offers. I think I mean, it wouldn't take that much. Like I said, it is really a convenience thing. If I didn't, wasn't doing what I was doing. If I didn't train, if I wasn't interested in being strong and retaining muscle mass, I'd be on the fence. I'd probably be close to becoming a vegan, I reckon. I would say if I had more time, if I had the time to set my diet up and figure out what I was going to do, again, I probably would strongly consider it. I have considered it in the past, to be honest. It wouldn't take that much, to be honest. Wouldn't take that much. I'm not, like I said, I'm not protesting, against vegans. I'm not like a figurehead for like meat eating. Yeah, not at all. Like I don't, I'm not really, I'm not fussed either way. I do, like I said, if you look at it objectively, you probably should be a vegan. If you look at it ethically, you definitely should be a vegan, right? But basically, I guess what I'm saying is I can live with myself as doing what I'm doing, and I think that. With that said, it wouldn't take that much. That's a long answer, but basically it wouldn't take that much for me to become a vegan. I'm not really anti-vegan, so it wouldn't be ideal, but if I had to, I could do it. It's fine.
We'll check in on you in a year's time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
be 7.5 stone.
Really. Emelye, let me ask you a question. What's the stupidest thing you've been asked as a vegan?
Probably something along the lines of where do you get your protein from? Probably something like that. I mean, it doesn't sound like
I was about to ask that. That's really
a silly question, but I think
I've got it written down as question number 2 on my. That's really embarrassing.
That was actually sent in from Matt.
Yeah. I wanted the answer before we started this. God's sake.
Something along the lines of, aren't your hair and nails really weak and stuff like that. It's like, I mean, that kind of thing. No, because there's so many vitamins and minerals and things like that in vegetables and bits and bobs like that. So, yeah, it's normally where'd you get your protein from? Or somebody would look at you and go, when somebody finds out you're vegan, they literally look at you and they go, yeah, but what about bacon though?
It's always a bacon,
so
isn't it?
I get out my bingo board and I stamp the bacon to the hole again. And I go, right, do you want to finish this off before I shout bingo? Because, it's you get the same old stupid questions all the time.
One can imagine. Back to you, Matt. All right, this is an interesting one. Do you reckon, you could keep up with Emelye in the CrossFit camp?
There is 0% chance. If you've seen me perform any kind of cardiovascular activity, even walking up the 2 flights of stairs in my house, I'm gassed. So my cardiovascular capacity is akin to that of a 95-year-old lawn bowls player. So that will be a resounding no. Like, I'm very competitive. So I've actually done a couple of videos with other CrossFit athletes, right? and I've given it a go because, like I said, I'm very competitive. But my aerobic capacity is unbelievably poor. So no, definitely not. Not even there's no grey area there. Absolutely nowhere near. It'll be embarrassing.
I'm sitting there like, yeah, you got nothing on me.
I feel like I've done a couple of. I did one with Obi Vincent, who's a CrossFit athlete, right? And he was very kind to me. He picked stuff that was like, because in terms of like numbers, like my numbers for my compound lifts are good, right? So if we're lifting at like percentages of our max, then I feel like I do okay. But anything that, like I said, involves basically any prolonged activity, it's game over. That's it. I'm done. I'm out.
I think that's the difference, isn't it? You might be able to do it for a few reps, but when you're doing it absolutely blowing, with your heart rate sat at like 160 plus, it's another thing.
Not ideal,
I am out. I'm completely out of that one. Emily, last one for you. Do you think everyone will eventually be vegan? And what do you think the future holds for food and nutrition with this?
No, I don't. Sadly, I don't think that will ever happen. And it breaks my heart, really. I think as long as there are humans, there will be suffering, ultimately. And that's, And
we're ending the podcast there. See you later, guys. most depressing end to the podcast. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, no. No, I don't think that'll ever happen. I do think that we are living in far more open-minded times, and that things are changing, and there is a shift in people's mindset, which is very exciting, of course. And I do think that with increased awareness and a much more vast array of vegan options and products and places to go, and restaurants are really buying into this as well. I think there will be a big shift, and I think we will see a huge conversion of a lot of people over to a vegan way of living, or a more vegan way of. Or there's a big difference between vegan and plant-based. I think vegan is very much a way of life and a belief system that I think stems from not thinking about oneself and do no harm, whereas plant-based I think is far more thinking about oneself in the element of what they consume and more of an environmental level. So I do think there's going to be a bigger shift over to, whichever route people want to take to consuming less animal products, I am down with. Whether they want to call themselves plant-based or vegan, I don't care. Just, it's good with me. I'm happy.
You rock with both of them. I hear you. I see you 100%. Over to you, Matt. What was your biggest influence, right? And what is one piece of advice you can give to our listeners?
My biggest influence, I'd say, I've done like a few different things. Like I guess at different times I'd have different influences in terms of I'm not big on idolizing people. I've definitely had kind of, I guess, role models of people that I've aspired to be like, depending on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't really think. This is a rubbish answer. I don't really have anyone in particular that's been a massive influence, I would say.
It doesn't have to be somebody. It could be something. It could be a thing that's influenced you from that perspective as well.
I think just like my weird dorky brain, just like in the sense that I have a really deep-rooted desire to progress and see progress and monitor progress, So if I'm doing something and I don't see progression or potential progression, I'm not interested. I lose motivation completely for it and I won't do it. I need to see something is improving and growing and developing, and then I get well behind it. So in terms of, that's always been for my whole sporting, athletic whatever career, I've always monitored that, and that's always been the driving force, is wanting to get better. I'm always want to be the best, or just at the very least better what I'm doing. Improve numbers, whatever. And in terms of advice. That was the second part, right? Advice.
Yeah.
A bit of advice. Okay. First advice would be give shorter answers to questions than that I do. But the second part would be I guess what I just said there. Loads of things, right? But just off the back of that, to track stuff. People don't. It is amazing how many people I've worked in gyms, and you get people that just go to the gym every day and literally rock up and just do what they feel like doing. Or I could say to them, they're doing a bench press, and I say, "What did you do last week?" And then they couldn't even tell me, right? If you don't track your training and your training volume and what you're doing, you can't progress it over a long period of time. Unless you've got an absolute freakish memory, you can't progress what you're doing, right? So that might get you by as a beginner for a bit of time, but long term, if you want to get bigger or lose fat or make progress in any aspect of fitness or your body, your physique, you have to track what you're doing. You know, if you don't track it, you can't be accountable. You can't increase it. You can't use essentially progressive overload, and therefore you're not going to make progress. So you're not wasting your time, but you're not using your time anywhere near as efficiently as you could. So just literally, you can use notes in your phone. You know, just write down what you did. I did this lift, for example, for this many reps with this much weight. And then at some point, you're going to try and beat that. You're going to increase it in some way, you know. So on a real basic term, just track what you're doing. That you can apply it to diet. You can apply it to loads of things. At the very least, have a rough idea of what you're doing and don't document it or write it down so that you know you can then progress it. And it's fun to look back on it, you know. It's fun to look back. I can look back on what I was doing like 5 years ago, training-wise, and it's cool to see that, you know, to see the contrast and the progression.
Incredibly so. I love the passion of which you spoke about.
Passionate guy, mate. Passionate guy.
It's like when you're walking around the gym and you're seeing people without their phones or without a notepad.
Track it, write down.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah, I track it for them. I like follow them around and just write down their numbers. They're like, what are you doing? I'm just writing down what you're lifting. Absolute creep. I've been banned from like 13 gyms because I just keep writing down what people are doing and secretly filming them. That's not true. I don't do that. I've never done that.
Ripping off the CCTV, I see.
Yeah,
Emelye, over to you. What's been your biggest influence, or one piece of influence in your life, and what one piece of advice you can give to our listeners?
Oh, that's such a hard one because I think I've had so many influences over my life. I mean, do you mean people who have perhaps influenced me, or movements,
or people, movements, a movie, it could be anything that's like.
It doesn't have to be me, but I'm just saying it could be me. Just throw it out there.
Okay, so I think in regards to veganism, there's a film out there called Earthlings, which I found really, really influential and very moving. It's a very difficult watch, but I think it's important that everybody does watch it. It's really tough to watch. And any of the Animal Aid, Oculus Rift, virtual reality things that you can do are very, very educational and eye-opening. Again, very difficult watches, but very important. In terms of people, I feel very influenced by people like Ricky Gervais and Jim Carrey, my two favourite comedians of all time. They're so outspoken about things they believe in, and they don't mollycoddle. They kind of just put it out there. And I find that very refreshing and very important as well. And Russell Brand as well, I find him quite influential. He's somebody who's shown a real transformation as a human being, and I find that really important, that, you know, he's allowed himself that growth to come back from a really dark place and kind of go through this transformation of being a new person and doing some real good. And a bit of advice that I'd always give to people is, is try to do no harm. And something I always say, which is what my mindset coach actually always says, is never make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions.
That's a good one.
So it's quite a quite an insightful little quote from her.
That makes my answer look really bad, doesn't it? What did I say? Like writing stuff down. Can we redo that? Can we do that again, please?
I just had longer to think about it.
That's like pen and paper. All right?
Yeah. Biro. Black biro.
And also allow yourself personal growth. Never restrict yourself to who you used to be, and allow yourself to change your mind based on new information. And I think that's a real thing, because there are certain things when it comes to veganism and the vegan diet, there are certain things that you're going to struggle to get. But by acknowledging that, from the evolutionary process that we've been through as human beings, there's certain things we don't have access to as vegans, but we can through fortified supplements and things like that. We have to acknowledge that by the way of eating, we don't access certain things anymore. So understanding and accepting that there are flaws in everything that we do, but allowing yourself that personal growth and that change and that ability to be not perfect, but strive for the best excellence that you can achieve is super important. Take the pressure off, allow yourself faults. It's through the faults and the failures that we do grow and learn.
On that absolute bombshell there, and that strong piece of advice there, that about wraps up this week's episode of Myprotein's The Scoop podcast. A huge, massive thank you to our guests, Emelye and Matt. You guys have given us some incredible insight, a really engaging discussion surrounding veganism, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to have a lot to say. So people, please keep the conversation going via social media using the hashtag The Scoop, and get involved indeed in the comments too. Hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on our YouTube platform, and also hit the subscribe button on podcasts as well. And drop us a nice little comment. Don't worry, we'll be back again soon for another episode. I've been David Alorca. You've been watching The Scoop. Thanks for listening.